and she just rips off her clothes and just starts shaking in the water. He's like, whoa, Stan freaks out. And she's like, you must understand. They're here. They're taking us all. I feel them inside me. And she like falls on him. Hello, and thank you for checking out the video. I just want to let you know that I not only create content on my YouTube channel, Class in the Glass, but I'm also on Twitch, where I review movies, cartoons, and TV shows live, while also playing single-player games and multiplayer games. I also have a Patreon where subscribers have access to hundreds of video and audio commentaries for films and cartoons, as well as podcasts and videocasts. In the meantime, thank you again for watching. Enjoy the video.
Critics are calling it hip and scary. A thrilling ride from beginning to end. The Faculty.
But now, my friends, we're going to have to go ahead and get to tonight's review. Which is actually, it's themed, Chet. It's themed. Because tonight, as you know, we're doing a watch party for the Book of Boba Fett, Chat, episode 7. It's all ending here. If you're interested to see how they're going to wrap this up, because it's been it's been back and forth. There's been some highs and lows with this series, Chat. It's been a mixed bag, to say the least. But hopefully they can at least, nail the landing with this last episode. But I figured, it would make sense to also review a film that the Book of Boba Fett showrunner and director Robert Rodriguez has also done in the past, Chat, which is The Faculty. So it's a nice little themed show for tonight. I figured that'd be fun. But before we go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty details of this 1998 sci-fi feature film, I need to ask you a very important question. That question being, how many of you have seen the 1998 science fiction horror film directed by Robert Rodriguez, The Faculty, Chat? Very curious, very curious. Mauricio said, Mauricio, good to see you, honk. Mauricio, welcome. You've seen it. There you go. Person Man says, no. M0, I've seen it and love it. Serious Box says, nay. Treasure says, many moons ago. The Dark Slayer says, haven't seen it. Hello Burger, I've seen the DT Retro review. That counts. That counts. You might as well have seen it. True. Chris says, I think I rented from Blockbuster in high school. Damn. In high school? There was a Blockbuster when you were still in high school? Jesus. Catsby, yes, a long time ago. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. There you go. Ninja Turtles, Faculty is okay. So Ninja Turtles, Cristado, I actually haven't seen it. But I've seen this movie more times than I can count. I love it. Duma only saw it once a few years ago. M0 says saw it on cable. So maybe, no, I haven't seen this. Marvel Love Nerds sure have. Love this movie. It's a lot of mixed reception around with this film, Chat, around this film. When it came out, famously, they were trying to pitch this. This is from the same studio, Dimensions, that brought you Scream, from the same writer, Kevin Williamson, that brought you Scream and Scream 2. And they're like, hey, all right, this is going to be the sci-fi movie Scream, basically. What Scream was for horror films, this is going to be for sci-fi films. Very meta, kind of critiquing, a sci-fi plot, critiquing Invasion, the Body Snatchers, if you will, the Puppet Master, those kind of homegrown alien invasion movies. And, it didn't meet the same critical or commercial success as something like Scream 1 or Scream 2, which had come out prior. Now, it's not to say the movie doesn't have its merits, and the movie has been reanalyzed and reappreciated in recent years and has become a cult hit. And you can see some people in the chat, they do love this movie. They like this movie a lot. And there's some fun things with it. I think for me, it's just my problem with this film, I think, overall, whereas with Scream, yes, Scream was critiquing horror tropes in films, and Scream 2 critiquing horror sequels, of course. But by themselves, they still stood on their own feet as just being really effective and well-made and well-written movies and slasher films and horror films, where I think with The Faculty, it is so reliant on what came before. I mean, they literally, Robert Rodriguez, and I'm sure Kev Williamson, they take liberally from so many other sci-fi films like both of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers movies, from John Carpenter's The Thing. I mean, you can pick. There's just sequences. I'm like, you're just doing your own version of a famous scene from a movie, and that just kind of sticks in my craw, and it just doesn't work for me. personally. Not to say that there are things that that I don't like about this movie. I think that there are some solid performances, I think, from the cast and from some members of the faculty. There's weird inclusion of characters. Like Usher's in this movie, and again, I know because he's Usher and everything. He was one of those, I guess big celebrity gets that was supposed to sell the movie. He barely has any screen time, and he's not exactly doing anything interesting. But overall, it's like, it's a mixed bag, but I don't think it's in any way, in any capacity, a bad movie. Just one that, I can't say I'm the biggest fan of. But for those that like it, I totally understand. The movie, like I said, it has a cult following now, despite, when it initially came out. It had a budget of $50 million, box office 63.2, so it's a reasonable box office, not hitting those Scream levels of hitting those triple digits, shed nearly 170, nearly 200 million or something like that. But it did respectable business in the years since. It has made money and has found a very loving community to appreciate it. And for those of you in the chat who love this movie, hey, more power to you. I like it. You guys can keep me on track and to see if I'm indeed reviewing this movie appropriately, Chad. If I'm appropriately doing a scene by scene breakdown. But, my friends, I've already gone over the history of this film and everything, the success it was at the time and it continues to be. But now we got to go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty details of the 1998 science fiction horror film, The Faculty. We start, chat, with Robert Patrick, the T-1000, who, again, was riding so high after the success of Terminator 2 Judgment Day in 1991, that fucking Robert Riggs and everyone, we needed the T-1000 just to already freak people out. And I will say, Robert Patrick, one of the best parts of this movie. He is he's chewing at the scenery so many times, just doing exaggerated faces and things. And I'm like, I love it. We need more of him throughout this movie, Chad. I think he was almost underused in the film. But we start where he is the football coach of the Hornets, Chad, in this small town school in Ohio. And he's that prototypical football coach, just yelling at the players, calling them limp dick little shits. And he said, we're going to fucking lose Friday's game because you don't get your goddamn football skills in order. We're screwed. We're fucked. And everyone's like, sir, can you please stop yelling? He's like, no, you goddamn Nancy. And is this one guy, Stan, who's walking away after practice, and Robert Patrick's yelling. He's like, Stan! And he's like, what? Jesus, stop yelling at me. He's like, get your fucking head in the game, Stan, or get the fuck off my field. And he throws the football at him, Stan catches it, but then Usher's his friend, Chad, is his friend, and he's like, it's not worth it, man. You don't want to fight the T-1000. He can turn into a liquid and a solid. And he's like, okay. And so they walk away, and Robert Patrick's just still freaking out at this point. And he throws over, he tips over all the water jugs, flips over all the benches. He's losing his mind at this point, chat. And then the sprinkler system's about to come on. He's like, fuck you, sprinkler system. And then he just starts kicking the sprinkler, and he breaks it. And he wants to make sure that sprinkler does not pop up, chat. But then he puts his hand on. He's like, oh, just holding it down. But then we see someone behind him. There's a shadowy figure behind him that is approaching him. And he turns around. He's like, yeah. And before he turns around, because he hears the person, he's like, whoever that is, expect to be doing goddamn laps until dark. And then and he turns around. He sees the person. We don't see who they are. And he's like, what the hell do you want? Hard cut, Chad. Hard cut. And we are having a teacher meeting in the faculty lounge. You got Principal Bebe, Chad. I think her name is Principal Bebe. And she is talking with several of the teachers. We got Mrs. Brimmel, who looks like Rosemary Harris, except 20 years older. And she's like, she wants to get some new computers for the school, but the school has no money for new computers. Mrs. Brimmel, like, I think the children would learn much better with better computers. No, Ms. Brimmel, we can't afford them. Just get the IT guy. And the Principal Bebe says, just juice up the old computers. What does that mean, juice up the old computers? I don't know. We also have another teacher, chat, Mr. Tate, and he is a history teacher, and he wants to take the students to New York, want to go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and, Principal Bebe's like, no, Mr. Tate, we can't do it, but he's like, but that's we've taken this trip for so many years, we can't do it this year, and he's like a severe alcoholic, chat, he's always drinking on the job consistently. He's just a sad man. He went through a divorce. Everyone knows about his alcoholism, chat. His fucking wife left with the male babysitter. It's like, Jesus Christ. And then, chat, we have Mrs. Olson, who is the drama teacher, chat, and she needs funding for the latest school musical/play, and she ain't gonna get it. But then Mr. Tate's like, oh, well, I bet the football team's gonna get all that new equipment. I'm sure they're gonna get all them new footballs and jock straps and shit. And Principal Bebe's like, listen, yes, they are. They are going to get their funding because this is a football town. We live in the middle of Ohio where nothing else exists. All these people have is football, okay? You take that away from them, then they're nothing. All right? So you're goddamn right that we're going to fund the football team because they bring in actual money, all right? It's a sad fact. And it's like, that's sad. That is sad to hear, Chad. Luke the Boss, thank you for the 2 weeks. Not all women are Rosemary Harris. In my world, they are. In my world, it's a better world. They all are Rosemary Harris, thank God. And she's like, all right, guys, listen, the meeting's adjourned. This is the way it has to be. So they're all walking, outside, chat. And we see, Mr. Tate. I mean, just Mr. Tate just not giving a shit anymore about life and being an alcoholic. He does at least have the kindness in his heart to walk Miss Brimmel to her car. Miss Brimmel's like, I just think if the children have some computers, they would be more interested in learning. And it's like, Miss Brimmel, you're too good. Miss Brimmel, I will say, chat, Miss Brimmel is the one I feel the most guilty about what happens to her later on in the film. She's too good for this fucking school, in my opinion. But Mr. Tate walks down and, Miss Olson, she starts talking to Principal Bebe, and she's just like, I just, the kids were just really excited about doing Guys and Dolls this upcoming semester. And Principal Bebe's like, well, they'll just have to settle but to do last year's play of the last year's sets. And right before she's about to walk down the steps, she's like, I left my fucking keys in my office. Listen, we could continue this conversation just a bit. If you want to wait here, I'm going to go back inside. And so Principal Bebe, she goes back inside, Chad. She goes to her office. She grabs the keys right there. She turns around, and Robert Patrick, he's there. He's like, just staring at her. It's like, have you seen this boy? And she's like, I have not seen Edward Furlong, no. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, hey, Principal Bebe, you're looking very pretty today. And she's like, yeah, okay. And, and she's like, yeah, thanks, Coach. Have you been drinking? He goes, I have been drinking water. He's like, oh, thank you. You should drink some more after finishing that whiskey sour you just drank. She tries to go around him, not letting her pass. And she's just kind of exasperated by this. Like, was there a sexual relation between Principal Bebe and the coach? I wasn't sure, Chad, but I think she's just like, she's clearly dealt with him like this before. And he starts asking, can I have a pencil? And she's like, if I give you the pencil, will you get out of my way? He goes, yes. And she's like, all right. And she takes the pencil, gives him the pencil. There's your fucking pencil. Now get out of my way, okay? Sexual harassment, that's ground for firing Robert Patrick. And apparently, you know what his response is, Chad? Grabs her fucking hand and stabs the pencil right through it. And she's like, oh! And she freaks out. Because Chad, I'm like, I know pencil violence, and I have a thing about pencil violence, Chad. I told you. Nearly lost my right eye. Nearly lost my right eye in the second grade, Chad, where I defended myself. I'm a crazy fucking kid who stabbed a poor girl in the eye, and he went for me next, and I still have a little bit of the graphite embedded in my hand to this day. So, goes right through her fucking hand, chat, right through, and she just uses her, she becomes Wolverine, where, remember when you were a kid, or, I don't know, like a 30-year-old man like myself, and you take your car keys occasionally, and you pretend to be Wolverine by putting the individual keys between your fingers and going, rawr. She does the same thing, chat, so it still works to this day. I love it, chat. Do that, okay? Indulge in being in Wolverine occasionally, but she becomes Wolverine momentarily, snicked, and she slashes the face of Robert Patrick, Chad, who goes, no! And he tries to go after her and everything. At one point, she runs out, and she goes all the way to the doors where she sees Miss. She's like, Miss Olsen, open the fucking door. And she's like, I can't. They're all chained up. You chained them up. And she's like, it's Robert Patrick. He's trying to kill me or something. And she's trying to open up, and she's like, the keys. I gotta go back and get the keys open to get the chains off. And so Miss Olsen's like, be careful, Principal Bebe. And so Principal Bebe, she goes back in and she finds the keys, but then as she gets out in the hallway, Robert Patrick is just waiting there like the T-1000, Chad. She's like, shit. And she's like, oh my God, feet don't fail me now. And she runs all the way to the door. Robert Patrick then suddenly realizes like, oh shit, and she's getting away. And he does his T-1000 run, just chopping air like this, coming after her. And then we get some really bad editing where somehow Principal Bebe is able to unlock it and I guess immediately rip off the chains and then get out of the door and then wrap the chains around the handlebars of the door and lock it again. Watch that shot, chat. It's just very weird. Women do that when they walk alone outside. #men. But he wraps the chains around there. She wraps it around. He's like, how did you do that? That was a weird editing thing. And she goes, yes, thank God Robert Rodriguez's editor is shit. And right when she's like, let's get out of here, Miss Tate's just staring at her like this. And she has a pair of scissors and she starts stabbing Principal Bebe in her boobs. And as you know, if you get shot in the boob or if you get stabbed in the boob, insta death. And we see Miss Olsen murder Principal Bebe, Chad, via multiple boob stabs. And then she just says, I always wanted to do that. And she looks at Robert Patrick, Chad. It's like, oh my God, they're in league with each other. What the hell is going on? Robert Rodriguez was the editor. Robert Rodriguez, stop being your own editor. You don't know how to edit a movie. And we then cut, and it is The Faculty. The title screen comes on. And at this point, we then see it's I don't know, several days later, it's morning, who knows, and we're introduced to a whole medley, a whole menagerie of characters, Chad, okay? Introduced to the first character of Zeke, played by Josh Hartnett. He's the bad boy, Chad, but he uses his brain. He's actually really smart. He just doesn't like to apply himself, Chad. He thinks the whole hierarchy, he thinks the structure, which, you know, of the American school system is flawed and always repressive against the students, chat. And so he bucks the trend by just becoming an entrepreneur and selling drugs, laxatives, cherry-flavored condoms, porn of Nev Campbell, a lot of that, chat. He does that. And, you know, he occasionally goes to school when he feels like it. And he gets his little name. It says Zeke, and it's like, oh, that's cool. We're also introduced to the character of Casey, Chad, played by Elijah Wood. He is the prototypical nerd, geek, freak, what have you. Walks off the bus, Chad, and as soon as he walks forward, Chad, boom, he just gets elbowed in the nose by some guy, and he falls on his ass and goes like, oh, I'm sorry, that was my mistake. And it's like, poor fucking Frodo Baggins. We then cut to Stokely, Chad, who is the goth chick, I suppose, delinquent-esque character, you know, that kind of, you know, think Breakfast Club, Chad. It's all the stereotypes of Breakfast Club in this movie. She's there, and I guess she just wanted to double down on hating Casey because she says, oh God, what's the line she says? Crash and burn, Casey. It's like, why did you do that? Why do you have to say that to him? He already felt like and he talks to her often. And she's just kind of mean. That case, she shouldn't have been mean. Like, I get why you're mean to the popular kids and the jocks and Jordana Brewster, who's very, very homophobic throughout this movie. But I don't know why to Casey. It's almost like she just wants to punch down. After that, Chad, we're introduced to the character of Stan, who we saw in the beginning of the movie, who was being harassed by Robert Patrick in the football throwing him and stuff. And Stokely bumps into Stan. She's like, get out of my way. Watch where you're walking. And he's like, you bumped into me. And he is the boyfriend of Delilah, Chad, Jordana Brewster's character. She is the head of the school newspaper. She's kind of like the queen bee, if you will. He goes over there and is like, hey, how you doing, Delilah? About to kiss her. And she's like, Jesus fucking Christ, okay? I just put on it. She has like some type of, I don't know. Ladies in the chat, she has some type of lips. Did she put on lips? She said, I just put these lips on, all right, like 60 minutes ago, and it takes 72 hours, or that's 72 minutes to settle. I'm like, what the hell is she fucking referring to? Like, I don't know, is it lip gloss? Is it lip gloss shit? I don't know. Did she literally just put fake lips on? I don't know. Tell me. Sam, Seattle, good to see you. Hope you're doing very well. Reviewing The Faculty right now. Apparently, Jordana Brewster's got some fake lips on, and Stan's like, okay, I just wanted to kiss my girlfriend, but I guess that's not happening. Is it chapstick? I don't feel like I feel like if you have chapstick on, I could kiss you after like 5 minutes. But she's like, it takes 72 fucking minutes for this to settle. Probably a term for lipstick gloss, maybe something waterproof or smudge proof. I guess that's it. I think Casfay nailed it. Thank you, Casfay, moderator extraordinaire. And then, chat, we're introduced to the last of the main characters, Mary Beth, and all she does throughout the first half of the movie is introduce herself. Everyone says, hi, my name is Mary Beth. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. This is my zip code. This is my social security number. Do you need my credit cards? Do you need my credit card numbers? And I'm like, that's a lot of specific information. Weird. And she goes up to these two goth kids who are literally look like they just died on the front steps of the school, and she says exactly what I just told you. Chat, my name's Mary Beth. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. This is my zip code. This is the county I lived in. Do you know where the front office is? And they're just like, it's like, I think they died. I don't think they got really early, chat, by the parasitic shrimp people. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. Oh, that's very kind of you. And she's like, I really like your nose ring. It really brings out the whole black that you have all over. Anyway, bye. And so she goes inside the school after that. Eventually, Chad, we get some more outside scenes too. Like this school, there's no control at all, no security at all. Like you have this one lady who was back into a parking spot, and then another person trying to get that parking spot at the same time. Boom, hits her from behind. She's like, what the fuck, you bitch? And we see this one girl tear out this other girl from her car and just start beating on her. It's like, Jesus Christ. And if that wasn't worse enough, chat, you also see this couple fighting, and the guy and the girl are just slapping the shit out of each other and pushing, and everyone's like, oh, they always do that every day. It's crazy in this school. It's a nightmare. Also, Casey is very sad because the bullies always grab him. And these are like some Stephen King bullies, chat, where they grab him and they spread his thighs. They spread those Baggins thighs, chat. You know they're thick too because hobbits love to eat. They spread those thick hobbit thighs and they just start ramming him into the flagpole, chat, just making sure that he will never have children at all and dropping him on the ground. Eventually, though, we then go into the bathroom, chat, where it must just smell horrible, rancid shits and urine, and we have these two guys, one of the actors from That 70s Show and some schmuck who probably never worked again, and they're asking Zeke for some of his drug mixture, chat, which he keeps in pens to hide. And so I'm like, okay, he's selling drugs, whatever. You think, oh, it's like an inhale. You gotta snuff it up your nose, that kind of thing. Looks like crack cocaine. Looks like cocaine, chat. But the name of his drug, which I think is very hilarious, like, hey man, got any of that scat, Zeke? And it's like, I guess that makes sense because he sells in the bathroom, chat. You know, scat's another word for shit, you know, poop, if you will. And I'm like, is he literally pooping and giving it to these guys to get high off of? I don't know. I'm not sure. But he gives them. He's like, hey man, give him my fucking money. He takes it. And then we cut to a stall where we have Casey, who is nursing his engorged balls, chat, because they were rammed against the flagpole, so his nose is bleeding. He's just sad. He's just really, really sad. And you thought these kids were sad. And let's go to the faculty lounge, chat, where Salma Hayek is forced to touch Harry Knowles, chat, which is like, that's the worst. I mean, you thought it was bad then. This is the worst scene. But Salma Hayek did this for a favor for Robert Rodriguez, where she literally comes into the movie and she's like the school nurse and she's sick and she has to touch Harry Knowles, who apparently got like his fingers chopped off or something. I don't know. And she's like, Harry, and he got his fucking name said in the movie. And it's like, Harry, you got to make sure to be careful. Protractors bite back. What kind of fucking protractors do you have in this school where they're literally chopping off human fingers? This is dangerous. This is very dangerous. And Harry Knowles is like, because he's a very big guy. He's like, first of all, I need my butter. Second of all right, we should be getting some hazard pay for using these faulty protractors. And we then cut, and we then have Famke Johnson. She comes in the movie, chat. She's in like 5 scenes. She's here, and she plays like a really fucking bad teacher. Her name is Mrs. Burke, and she's like that kind of like super mousy, has no self-esteem whatsoever, but yet is incredibly attractive. And she goes in there and she sees poor Mrs. Brimmel, chat. She's getting information down for the students who are interested in college, getting some stuff for them. And fucking Mrs. Burke asks Mrs. Brimmel how she's doing, and she's like, oh, I'm quite fine. But she drops the book, chat, because she has old lady hands. And then Mr. Tate, who is already fucking drinking. It's 8 a.m., dude. He's like, can you say retirement? And Mrs. Burke like, that's rude. You shouldn't say that. And then Jon Stewart comes in. Jon Stewart, formerly of The Daily Show, chat, comedian. He walks in and he tries to hit on Selma Hayek, who is forced to touch Harry Knowles, and Jon Stewart does not make eye contact with Harry Knowles. And, he's trying to like, hey, maybe you should, like stay home or something. Maybe I can, we could take you out when you're feeling better. She's like, no, it's okay. He's like, why don't you just stick a pen in my eye then? Which is a very oddly specific thing to say, chat. I was like, that's weird. I wonder if that's some foreshadowing. We'll find out. But then Jon Stewart goes over to talk to Mr. Tate, and they eye Robert Patrick, who's spending a lot of time around the water cooler, chat, just chugging fucking water. And John goes to Mr. Tate, and he goes, Jesus Christ, see the coach, how much water he's drinking? Watch him, it's making me want to piss. And then by the time Jon Stewart turns around, Mr. Tate's already gone, I guess. I feel like, there's certain points in the movie we can point to where they got infected with the parasites. I feel like Mr. Tate's flask had the parasite, had the shrimpies in him, and that's when he got infected. I think. I don't fucking know, but I would guess. And then Miss Olsen comes in, and Miss Olsen got a goddamn glove, chat. She walks in, she's strutting her stuff, and then Robert Patrick turns around, he's like, Miss Olsen, you're looking very pretty today. And she's like, It's like, are these two gonna fuck in here? I don't know. Eventually, we cut from that, and we then have Famke Janssen's class, and again, she's just, how are you? I mean, that's how, I'm sure no school in America was going to hire her because she was so bad, except this one, chat, because this is a nightmare high school, and she's doing like a lesson on the Count of Monte Cristo, and talking about, the book itself, and you have Zeke, he's like, I know the answer, and she's like, what is your, not Crusoe, she's not Count of Monte Cristo, Crusoe. Like she's saying, like, what was Crusoe's greatest fear while on the island? And Zeke's like, oh, the fucking calluses on his hands from jerking off. And she's like, that's not right, Zeke. That's not right. No, it was his fear of loneliness. It's like, no, it was his fear of isolation. And she's like, that's exactly what I said. And he goes, yes, calluses. And I'm like, after that weird fucking scene, we then transition, and Stan, he wants to talk to his girlfriend, Delilah, and thankfully the lip gloss has settled on the lips, chat, so she's good at this point. And he's like, I've just been thinking about leaving the football team, Delilah. And Delilah's like, why do you want to do that? He's like, because everyone is pressuring me to be the best player that I can be, and people, they keep complimenting me. And I just don't like that. I want to focus on my academics. Okay, that's what I want to do. I don't want on any of these free favors. Okay, I just want to make it on my own merit. And she's like, "You're a fucking loser, Jesus Christ!" And then she walks away. He's like, "Why?" He's so sad. After that, we then cut to class, and Tate walks in, who's just been drinking his fucking whiskey coffee, chat, sits down, open the book, and he's like, everybody, chapter 4, let's talk about, let's talk about the Soviet Union and everything, but then fucking Stan raises his hand, he's like, excuse me, Mr. Tate, we talked about chapter 4 last week, we're actually on chapter 5, and he's like, whatever, and they start reading that. And then, we cut, and within that class, we see Stokely. She's in there with Stan, and she keeps looking at Mary Beth Chance like, ooh-wee, does she have an eye for Mary Beth? I'm not sure. But then we cut outside where we have Stokely reading one of her sci-fi novels, and Mary Beth comes over. She's like, hi, my name is Mary Beth. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. This is my county that I'm from. My social security number is this. You need any of my credit card information to prove that I'm one of you? And she goes like, you're really weird. She goes, nah, I just wanted to come by and just, ask you if you had any friends, if you need a friend, because I'm new here. I don't have any friends. Do you want to be my friend? And she's like, no, I don't have any friends. And then Jordana Brewster comes over, and she's like, Mary Beth, you shouldn't be talking to lesbians. Did you know she was a lesbian? She's a and for whatever reason, throughout this entire movie, I know it's the late 90s, and I guess this was just, I remember in middle school saying like, that's gay, that's so gay. But I'm like, Jesus Christ. I feel like even the nice people have been like, all right, fucking lay off, my God. But she is just so hateful towards the Stokely character, just constantly referring to her as a lesbian, as a muff diver, chat, every name in the book. And she's like goes to Mary Beth, are you a lesbian? Are you a lesbo too? And Mary Beth's like, there is no lesbianism in my lineage as far as I know. And it's like, that's an odd line to say. And she's like, well, good, because then I would have to like make fun of you relentlessly throughout the rest of this movie. And then Stokely gets up to leave. She's like, yeah, you get out of here, lesbo. Take all your lesbo and lesbianisms somewhere else, some other part of the school. And Mary Beth just kind of sits there and you're like, that was very weird and uncomfortable. After that chat, we then cut to Casey, who also has no friends, and he is sitting in the bleachers on the football field, chat, drinking his apple juice, eating his sad sandwich, chat, eating his carrot sticks, a good meal for a hobbit, I believe. And he's like, well, I'm done. And he walks down, chat, but as he's walking, he sees a weird, it looks like a shrimp or a calcified turd. And his first thing that comes to his mind is like, I'm going to pick this thing up. He picks it up and he looks at it. He's like, what is this? Puts it in his pocket. He's walking away. Fucking Robert Patrick appears. And you don't want Robert Patrick to surprise you, chap, because, you know, he's T-1000. He's going to come after you. And he's like, what are you doing? What are you doing there, son? He's like, oh, sorry. I was just eating lunch. And he's like, the lunchroom is at the school. This is the football field. What are you doing here? He's like, no, you're right, Mr. Robert Patrick. I apologize. He's like, you're that kid. What's your name? He's like, oh, my name is Casey. So he's like, yeah, I've seen you around here, Casey. And he's like, yeah, I've seen you run before. And it's like, you're pretty fast. We can use that kind of speed on the football team. And he's like, sir, I believe that one should only run if they're being chased. And he goes, oh, you think that, don't you, Casey? Well, get going. He fucking scares. He goes, go. And he runs off, chat. He runs off, and Patrick's like, oh, no, he has it. It's like, oh, what does he have, Chad? Oh, we shall soon find out. After that, we then go to, we then cut to a Stokely who was in John Stewart's biology class. Thank you, Gus Benny. So is Stokely bisexual? Because at first I was like, oh, yeah, she's obviously straight because you had a crush on that one guy. Then there's some scenes between her and Mary Beth, and it's like, yeah, no, exactly, because I don't know. Maybe she's bisexual, but then she gets upstanded by the end of the movie. I don't know. That's a very good question. Because she's constantly giving these looks to Mary Beth throughout the film. Maybe because she's like uncomfortable. I mean, maybe you can go back to the movie and like, oh, is she looking at Mary Beth? She's like, she's just kind of odd. Maybe it's that, or maybe it's attraction. Perhaps she's bisexual because she admits it here. This is the very scene where Mary Beth sits down. She's like, you know, I didn't know you were a lesbian. I never met a lesbian before. What does it like to be a lesbian? There's no lesbianism in my lineage or my species, you know, being Southern and all. And fucking Stokely's like, I'm not a lesbian, okay? It's just a cover. She's using lesbianism as a cover, chat, because she just wants to be left alone. She doesn't want friends, and school sucks. It's just awful. And Mary Beth's like, well, I can be your friend, Stokely. You seem real nice, like. And then Casey comes in. And he goes up to John Stewart, and he's like, Mr. Stewart, I found this weird calcified shrimp thing on the football field, and I've never seen it before. And he looks at it, he goes, let's put this under the microscope. And then he starts looking, he's like, I've never seen a species like this before. I mean, it has the biology of something that is found in squids and prawns and shit. And Zeke's like, hello, everyone, I am Zeke. I am a drug dealer. I am also the smartest character in this movie. I will analyze this thing as well. So he comes over. And anytime you need a scene where it's like, okay, we need a getting out of, getting out of jail card. This is a getting out of Zeke card, Chad, because he's able to get out of any fucking situation possible. So he walks over there. He's like, yes, oh, yes, this organism is brand new. We've never seen anything like this before. Everyone's like, Jesus Christ, Zeke, you sure know a lot now, don't you? He goes, I have my moments, if you will. And so at this point, Usher then makes fun of Stokely because everyone thinks she's a lesbian, and she knocks into his arm, and he spills some water onto the Zeke. I'm a contradiction. That's what he says. I'm a contradiction. And which is, yes, you are. Every time within the movie, you never know what kind of character Zeke's going to be in every scene, Chad. It's always something new. But they knock some water on the little dried up shrimp, and it comes to life, and it starts breathing. Everyone's like, whoa, holy shit. And Jon Stewart's like, I'm going to put this thing in the fish tank. And so he waddles over there with the rest of the students, and everyone's like, well, aren't you worried about you might drown? Stewart's like, don't worry about it. Plus, we can get federal grant money for this thing if this is a new species. And he just dumps it into the fish tank, chat, and it just starts swimming around, and it shoots out like little hentai tendrils. And everyone's like, whoa, it's so cool. And they're like kind of amazed by it. And while this is all happening, chat, it then splits apart by like osmosis or some shit. And Stewart's like, oh my God, it's able to replicate itself. And his idea is like, I'm going to put my hand inside of there so I can feel it. Jon Stewart pulling a Prometheus in 1998, chat. Why the hell would you do it? But he's like, and fucking Elijah Wood's like, do you think that's safe? He's like, it's fine. I'm just going to touch it. And so this jackass shit, this Jackass 1998 edition, puts on the glove, starts feeling against this thing. We then cut to the awful CGI, and there's some horrendous CGI in this movie. But we cut to the CGI mouth of this thing going, and it bites Jon Stewart's hand. He goes, motherfucker, it has teeth. Oh, it's like if it has teeth and it can fight back. And then Stokely puts her hand against the tank, and it uses its tendrils to form it in the shape of her hand. It's like, oh my God. And Stewart's like, I got to get this over to, the university so they can study it properly. But this is dangerous. This is some dangerous shit. After all the classmates, they all look at this thing. Stan, He goes to talk to the coach because Robert Patrick, he's like, I don't want to be in the football team anymore. He's in the pool area. And he's like, Mr. Robert Patrick, I'm sorry, but I want to leave the football team. I want to concentrate on my academics. And you think, oh, Robert Patrick, he's going to explode. And he goes, all right, no problem, Stan. We'll miss you. And he's like, oh, I thought you were going to kind of ream me and yell at me. He goes, now what kind of human being would yell at you for concentrating on your academics? And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, have a great day, Stan. And then Stan leaves. Stan then leaves with your arms like hentai. Stan then leaves. He's like, I need to go take a shower because he was sweating up a storm, chat, talking to Robert Patrick. Gets a little nervous. And he walks into the locker room, and he sees Usher Usher has two modes. He has I don't know how to act mode, and I'm going to bully all of the little white boys in this film. And so he's just beating the shit out of poor Elijah Wood, chat, just accosting him and everything. And Stan's like, Usher, an other character in the movie. Why don't you just leave him alone? And they're going, well, since you told me that, okay, I will. And then, Elijah Wood's like, thanks. But then he says something really sarcastic to him. He says, it must be so hard to be the captain of the football team. He's like, you have no idea, Elijah Wood. You have no idea. Eventually, though, he then goes, and throughout the day, throughout the school, like, the teachers start acting weird, and they start, like, closing the doors of the faculty lounge where some of the teachers are, like Miss Brimmel and everything. And at one point, Stan, he's like, I'm going to go take a shower. Not a single soul in sight. He strips down, Chad. He's just got everything just hanging, as you would expect. Goes in there, gets his soap. They got on the string, so you don't want to bend down to reach for it, Chad. Might get a little surprise between the cheeks. But he's using the soap. He suds up and everything, puts it all over there. But then, someone else enters the bathroom, Chad, and they don't appear to be male, and they look very, very old. But then Stan, he hears, he hears some footsteps, some wet footsteps on the tiles, and he's like, is someone there? You don't want to open your eyes, Chad, with soap in your eyes because it will sting. And he lets the water get all over him. He's like, is anyone there? And he's like, oh, whatever. And he immediately turns, and it's Miss Brimmel going, oh, I need water. And she's completely naked, Chad. Old bazungas hanging out, looking like she's drying, Chad. Looking like a pickle or something. And she just rips off her clothes and just starts shaking in the water. He's like, whoa, Stan freaks out. And she's like, you must understand. They're here. They're taking us all. I feel them inside me. And she like falls on him. He's like, and the thing is, he's horrified, but he's like trying. He's like, it's okay. Like, he's freaked out. And then You see like her hair and her skull and everything, and he like when he pulls his hand away, half her fucking flesh on her head, all of her hair just comes right off, Chad. All the skin, the meat, and it falls on the fucking floor like a big floppy sound. And he's like, oh, Miss Rimmels, like, help me. And then we cut. Because Casey also walks in and he sees all this. He's like, whoa, oh my God. Sees all this crazy shit. And then they're in the principal's office, and they got Miss Olson there, and she's talking to Casey, and she's talking to Stan. She's saying, guys, just want to let you know that Miss Brimmel, she was taken to the hospital. She was just recently diagnosed with cancer. This is going to be her last year at the university. She's not in her right mind right now, so we apologize for that. But if you don't mind, we really want to keep this on the down low. We just don't want any, she's been through so much. And Stan's like, yeah, I understand. Of course. Casey's looking outside where he sees Robert Patrick just standing like this as all the sprinklers are just hitting him. And he's like, that's a little fucking weird. And Miss Olson's like, Casey. And the camera goes bum, 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 bum on Miss Olson's face. He goes, yeah, what's up? The score scared me. And he's like, do you understand? He's like, of course. I totally understand. No problem at all. I get it. After that, chat. We then cut to Zeke, who is selling porn of Nev Campbell, chat, to some very horny high school students who like, does this movie have like Nev Campbell full frontal and stuff? And he's like, you bet, man, you bet. And they give him the money, and they just run off the fucking VHS tapes, chat, just jerking before they can even get to the homes. Probably put those fucking VHS tapes in the VCR. Isn't that a little illegal? Probably. Most likely, yeah. And then right before he's about to leave, Femke Johnson, she comes over. She's like, Zeke, you can't sell this kind of stuff on school property. And he sits on his car. I was like, well, this is my car. This is my property, so I can do whatever I want. And she's like, Zeke, I'm the authority figure here. And I've heard that you have been selling illicit substances to the students. And he's like, you know what? I know what you need, Femke Johnson. I know what you need. And he pulls it out, and he's like, you need some chocolate laxatives. You're gonna love them. And she's like, Zeke, that's not very funny. I don't think that's funny at all. And he's like, you know what? I know what you really need. You need something else for down there. And he pulls out some cherry flavored condoms. They taste really good. Zeke. You're really mean. You're a meanie. And she just walks away. You're like a horrible teacher. You're so bad. When she's taken over by the parasite, she becomes a better person, chat. Fuck. Eventually, we cut back to Casey, who is, for those who don't know, Casey in the movie, he's Peter Parker. I would ask Ken Williamson, is Casey supposed to be Peter Parker in this movie? I'm like, he would most likely say yes. He's Peter Parker without the spider powers, chat. He's a photographer. He works for the paper. He's a nerd. No one fucking likes him. He's awkward. He's Peter Parker, chat. A little sarcastic, so he's, he probably says a lot of stuff behind people's backs. It's like, all right, I get it. You're Pete. And he has a crush on Delia, kind of like the Mary Jane, the Gwen Stacy, to his Peter Parker. And Casey, Casey's like, I've been seeing a lot of weird stuff recently with the faculty, Delia. And she's like, oh my God, Casey, you're such a fucking nerd, Jesus Christ. And he's like, well, maybe you want to sneak into the faculty lounge and see what they've been up to, see if we can get any scoops. And she's like, that's a pretty good idea for a nerd. And then they go inside the faculty lounge and they're looking all over the place. They found Selma Hayek's medication for her cold, and Selma Hayek's like, oh, she fucking, the nurse is all coked up on these meds. Not surprised there, Casey. And then he's like, oh, look, it's Mr. Tate's flask. He's like, I already exposed Mr. Tate's alcoholism last year and the fact that his wife ran away with the male babysitter, okay? His life is in shambles, Casey, Jesus Christ. But oh no. As soon as they're looking around, they see some of the faculty members trying to get into the faculty lounge. They're like, oh, shit, let's go hide in the closet. And so they go and they hide in the closet. They hide in there. And they see Robert Patrick and they see Mrs. Olson. They're just walking silently and just go immediately to the water and just start drinking that shit. And they just start throwing water in each other's faces. It's like, is this like some weird sex orgy ritual? It's like, what the hell is going on? It's just very weird. It's very weird. And as they're moving around inside the closet, chat, Casey bumps into something, and it's the mummified body of Mrs. Brimmel, chat. She's like, oh, Peter, and falls right on top of poor Casey, Peter Parker, chat, right on top of Delilah, and it's just, oh, geez, they're trying to stay quiet. They're like, ooh, ooh, they're freaking out, and this is as soon as Selma Hayek walks in the room, and she's like, I'm sorry, I just forgot all my medications. I just need them. And then she suddenly grabs by Robert Patrick, chat, and forced onto the faculty couch. He's like, get off of me, get off of me. And then Mrs. Olsen goes, and she vomits up a parasitic shrimp thing that goes into her ear. She's like, oh, and then, like all this blood just shoots out of her mouth and of her ear. At this point, Casey and Delilah are like, fuck this, we need to get the hell out of here. And they just run off, Chad. They just run off at this point, just trying to get out. Delilah, she just, Casey's like, I'm gonna get the fucking police. I'm gonna get my parents. I'm gonna get my police. She's like, you do whatever the fuck you want to do, nerd. I'm getting the hell out of there. And she runs. She runs. Eventually, the police, they do come to the school along with Casey's parents to see what's going on. And, but then we have, oh God, it's Principal. And who greets them, Chad? It's Principal Bebe, who we saw die in the opening of the film. Like, what the hell is this all about? Why is she all normal looking all of a sudden? Doesn't make any goddamn sense. And so she's there, and she's like, hey, no, right this way, officers. We'll show you. I mean, it was all just a misunderstanding and some overactive imagination of our students here, our bright and beautiful students. And they go to the closet and they find like a CPR dummy. And it's like, this is CPR Karen. She's been through some rough times, but she is indeed not the dead body, the mummified dead body of Mrs. Brimmel. And it's like, if you'll come with me, officers, I'll explain the situation in more detail in my office alone. And they go in the office, chat, and where she definitely implants them with parasitic shrimp abominations. But Rob Patrick, he keeps talking to Casey. Oh, also, Casey's dad is Christopher McDonald, Shooter McGavin from Happy Gilmore. It's like, I'm like, he's a very small role, but he's in this movie. And then also Casey's mom's there too. Or Patrick's like, I saw you running there, Casey. You should try out for the football team. A lot of chasing going on in the field. And fucking Shooter McGavin's like, hey, look at that, Casey. Told you that you have a future in football. That would be cool. I'd actually respect you as a son if you actually played football. Let's get going. But then they go to the principal's office. Where the police have come out, and they're all like, they're all derpy now because they just got implanted by weird shrimp parasites. And the Principal Bebe is like, Christopher McDonald, your wife, whoever her name is, if you want to come into my office, I can speak with you. And then Elijah's like, no, we can go home. And they're like, oh, that's quite fine. We'll see your parents, and we'll see you very soon, Casey. He's like, yeah, great, that sounds wonderful. And so then they leave. And then they leave and they go back home. At this point, Casey's parents, they are so pissed off at him for what he was doing, chat. And Chris McDonald's like, all right, you're not going to have any comic books, no internet, no music, no TV. And the wife's like, the pornos, take away his pornos. And he's like, of course. And he lifts up Casey's just semen-stained mattress where we see at least 2 or 3 thick volumes of porn magazines, chat. And he's like, you won't be flipping the bishop anytime soon, son. Casey's like, no, Dad, it's all I have. But then we see that all these Jordana Brewster cutouts. He's like, don't worry, you have material in here. And he leaves. But Casey's like, no. There's something weird going on at the school, the faculty. I just don't trust it. I don't trust it. There has to be more to this at this point. And so he decides to sneak out and to thoroughly investigate, Chad. But when he's on the roof, half the fucking faculty's just there, Chad. Fucking Robert Patrick, Mrs. Olsen, Selma Hayek, Harry Knowles. And you don't want Harry Knowles outside your window just going like that. That's a nightmare. And he falls off the roof, and his dad comes out. He's like, what the hell are you doing, Casey? He's like, Dad, it's the faculty. And all the faculty members have disappeared. So were they actually there, or was he imagining them? Like, I don't even know. Like, I don't have any idea. I have no idea. After that, it's the next day, and Christopher McDonald is taking Casey to school, and he's like, all right, now you come straight home after school. You hear me, young man? He's like, yes, sir. And then Robert Patrick walks up. He's like, I'm just going to have a talk with your dad, Casey. He goes, no. And then Robert Patrick, I assume, impregnates Christopher McDonald with a shrimp parasite, because then Casey turns around again. They're both going, it's great to have shrimp parasites in your tummy. And he's like, oh, no. As he's walking through the school chat, he is grabbed by a female student who is clearly Delilah, is clearly Jordana Brewster. She's like, come with me if you want to live. And they go into the bathroom, and he says, why are you dressed like that? Because she has her hair in a bun, and she is wearing glasses. And she's like, normally I wouldn't dress in drag. It's like, apparently, Chad, if you have your hair in a bun or have a ponytail and wear glasses, you're in drag, according to Jordana Brewster's character of Delilah. She's got weird issues, chat. I get the feeling that Delilah is just, she's struggling with her sexuality, and that's why, like, she's so aggressive towards gay people and just refers to things in terms that don't apply to what she's actually doing or saying or what she thinks. Very weird with her character. And she's like, he's like, well, why are you wearing all this? Why are you doing the Clark Kent thing? She's like, I'm in disguise, numbnuts. They're coming for me. He's like, well, didn't you tell your mom your parents about the situation? I tried, but my mom is an alcoholic, and she doesn't listen to me. And so it's not going great. We then get a water montage of the faculty. So, like, most of the faculty, I think, at this point have been taken over, chat. Harry Knowles taken over, Robert Patrick, Miss Olsen, Selma Hayek, everyone, Mr. Tate, and they're just bringing all the water in there, chat. They're just chugging all this shit. It's like, it feels so good. It feels so good. And then we cut to Stan, who is in Mr. Tate's history class. He's there, and Stokely sits in front of him. She then, turns her seat around. She goes, so I heard you left the football team. What's that all about? And he goes, well, I just really wanted to concentrate on my academics. And she's like, why? You're getting a free pass in school. And he's like, well, that's the reason why. I didn't want to get that special treatment anymore. It's like, I'll tell you, remember that big game from last season, and we won it, and it was because I did all these fucking touchdowns or some bullshit. And she goes, yeah. And he goes, well, the next day we had a biology test, right? And, I actually studied really hard for that test beforehand. Like, I practiced, I studied really hard, but it nearly killed me because of my practice schedule for football. And I ended up getting a D on that test. And she's like, okay. And he's like, and then Jon Stewart, he changed my grade to an A because he said I had a good throwing arm. And I'm like, I know, I earned that D. I deserve that D. I want that D, Stokely. Stokely's like, I want that D too. But he's like, but I earned that on my own merit, and I don't want any of that special treatment. That's why I left the football team. She's like, that's really hot, you going against authority. He's like, hell yeah, girl. And then Mr. Tate comes in, and he grabs this one guy's CD player and just slams it against the wall. He's like, all right, everyone, I want you to write the names of all of your current living family members that live with you and also live nearby and in various other states and countries around the world, okay? We need it. This is going to be your family history, your family tree, if you will. And then Stan raises his hand. He's like, excuse me, sir? Is this going to be on the test next week? And Mr. Tate's like, this is the test, son. It's like, that's a little weird. It's like, feel uncomfortable about that. After that, it's like a living family history, if you will. We then cut to Zeke, who is getting some of his drug out of his locker, and Mary Beth's just right there, staring at him too. And she's like, what's that inside those pans? And he's like, just some magic dust. And they start flirting back and forth and everything. He goes, well, hi, my name is Mary Beth. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. He just finishes what she says. She's like, oh, you know who I am? He's like, I do. You've been telling everyone your social security information. You should probably stop doing that. She's like, sorry, I'm just not used to having a social security card. It's really weird and archaic. And he's like, yeah, I know, I get. I'm also kind of against the grain too. I don't believe in the structure of society. She's like, oh, I believe in like totally upending society and have like a revolution of sorts. He's like, I like you, Mary Beth. I like you. She's like, I like you too, Zeke. And so they start bonding and everything. But then they start seeing like just weird shit. they start seeing like weird shit. Everyone's being called to the nurse's office to get ear exams from Selma Hayek, who is obviously putting shrimp parasites inside everyone's orifices, chat, either the earlobes, the nose, the mouth, the asshole. And you got a hole on you, shrimp parasite gonna go up in it. That's just how it's gonna work, chat. Peen hole, all that stuff. They notice all this. They also bond over the fact that their parents are dead. He's like, where are your parents? He goes, my parents died in a horrible accident, and I've been by myself for many, many years. What about you? He's like, my parents might as well be dead at this point, you know? And she's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, they're always traveling around, and I'm always at home by myself, so, I mean, who needs parents? He's like, parental figures are necessary for the family structure to continue, Zeke. You should think about that. Thank you! Deadpool, so much for the 10 days. Mary Beth is a communist, probably. Maybe, yeah, her side is. Yeah, it's all for the society. She's for everyone, spreading her lineage. Yeah, we'll find out more about that soon. But, because Zeke starts to notice, like, all this weird shit. Everyone's, like, not acting right in the school. Everyone's, like, super laid back and super relaxed. And other students who haven't been infected yet, clear, like, what the fuck is going on? And these, the two druggies that bought some of the scat off of Zeke, they come up to him. He's like, hey, man, you got any more of that scat, dude? He's like, yeah, no problem, man. I can hook you up. He's like, hey, man, you got any more of that scat? He's like, I just gave you some. He's like, yeah. I will buy all that you got on you. All that you got on you, man. He's like, okay. And he gives him more of the scat. He's like, yeah, thanks, man. Hey, do you got any, like, in your car or in your locker? Want to buy that, too? He's like, take in moderation, my dudes. Take in moderation. He goes, yeah, man, but do you have more of the scat? And then who walks up behind? Everyone's going, woo, oh my God. And we see Femke Johnson, chat. We see Mrs. Burke, and she's wearing this like really hot red top that's showing off the, you know? And she's like, Zeke, I thought I told you to stop selling that shit around school. He's like, Mrs. Burke, now's not the time. He's like, no. And she grabs him. She grabs him behind the neck chain and pulls him close, very intimate. He's like, I've been taking shit from you for far too long, okay? All right, I'm fucking sick of it. You are a piece of shit, okay? A piece of shit, so much a piece of shit that your parents don't even want you. I'm sure your mom typically says the best part of you dried up on her inner thigh nearly 20 years ago. And he's like, Jesus Christ, woman. And she's like, get out of my way. And she starts strutting her stuff. And he's like, she must be on something, chap. You can tell he kind of liked it. He kind of liked being talked down to by Miss Burke, chat. After that, we then go to Casey, who wants to talk with Stokely about sci-fi stuff. He needs to, because she is the sci-fi nerd on campus, chat. He's like, Stokely, I need to ask you some sci-fi questions. She's like, okay. And he's like, listen, I think the school is slowly being taken over by aliens. And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, everyone's acting so weird. Haven't you noticed that? She's like, yeah, I've noticed some weird stuff, sure, but aliens, what are you talking about? He's like, I think it's like, you know, invasion of the body snatchers. You know, I think that's like what's actually going on. She's like, he starts explaining invasion of the body snatchers, and but you know, there's no pods anywhere. He's like, well, maybe it's something else. Maybe, you know, it's like a parasite or something. She says, well, the Puppet Master, which was the original kind of invasion of the body snatchers X story before the author invasion of the body snatchers stole that idea. They were parasitic organisms taking over people's bodies. Like, that's it. That must be it. It must be some kind of parasitic organism taking over all the faculty and all the students and all the parents in town. But what could be the parasite? Oh, the fucking shrimp you found in the goddamn football field, Casey. It's the shrimp. We got to go to Jon Stewart's office. And so he meets up with Delilah, Stokely, Stan. They all like, oh, we found something, guys. We gotta go in and get the shrimp. And so they go inside their chat, but the shrimp, it's missing. Both shrimps are not in the tank. The tank's been cleaned out. It's like, what the hell happened there? Meanwhile, Zeke has gone into the back of the biology lab, and he's stealing all sorts of beakers and shit for his drug experiments, chat. Gotta make more of that scat product. Mary Beth is also in there with him. She's like, you know, Zeke, I really like bonding over the fact that we both have dead parents. Mine are actually dead. Yours are more metaphorically dead, but I really like bonding over that. Do you want to have sex back here? And he's like, hell yeah, I do. And they start smooching, and they make the whoopee, if you will. They make the whoopee. But while they're making sex, they hear the talking on the other end about all this alien invasion and stuff shit. And he's like, oh, this is hilarious. Remember, we gotta go over there and see what's up. And she's like, all right, but can you finish first? She's like, oh yeah, sure. And so they clean themselves up. And they go over there. It's like, what are you guys talking about? Alien invasions. What is this? It's like, no, Zeke, Mary Beth, you don't understand. We think the faculty have been taken over by parasitic shrimp organisms. And then they hear a door slam, goes boom, and it's Jon Stewart. And Jon Stewart's like, shouldn't you kids be in class right now? And they go, oh yeah, Mr. Stewart. It's a weird situation. I'm sorry. It's hilarious. Casey over here. Casey's like, hey, Mr. Stewart, excuse me. What happened to the shrimp? What happened to the shrimp parasites? He goes, they were sent to the university, like I said. And he goes, oh, do they know what they are? And he goes, which is so weird. What is this? What does that mean? I don't know. And then Zeke pipes up and he goes, oh, the thing is, though, Mr. Stu, it's very funny. It's very funny. Because he's trying to get out of the situation for everybody. He's like, no, the reason why we're late for class, because it was just a ridiculous conversation. Casey is saying that you and like the rest of the faculty in the school are slowly being taken over by alien parasitic shrimp things. And he goes, oh, that's a good one. And he starts like lowering the shades and the blinds and all the windows and the doors. And, he's like, all right, everybody. Well, you just go ahead and sit down. This all be over very quickly. And Zeke's like, oh, Mr. Stewart, that's not necessary. We'll just leave. And right when he's about to pass through, Stewart grabs his arm and he says, it'll go more smoothly if you just sit down. He throws Zeke across the room and he goes, whoa! And he crashes and shit. It's like, whoa, what the hell is going on? And Casey's like, oh! And then Jon Stewart just grabs Casey by the throat and starts strangling him at this point, chat. And Zeke, he grabs the paper cutter. The paper cutter rips the slicer, rips the blade off the paper cutter. And he's like, fucking let him go, Jon Stewart. And Jon Stewart's like, oh! And then Zeke's like, ah! And right before Jon Stewart's about to like smush poor Elijah Wood's face in, Zeke cuts off all the fingers of Jon Stewart's hand. Jon Stewart goes, motherfucker! And he just backhands Zeke, throwing him on top of the empty aquarium, and it shatters and glasses everywhere, Chad. Oh, it's a nightmare. And then Jon Stewart's like, oh! He's like on top of him now, and then all of a sudden his fingers become really bad CGI shrimp parasites, and they start crawling up the people, and they're all like, oh, and everything. Also, I think this is where another character does get infected, Chad. I was like, that's how that character gets infected. Now we know. But they're crawling up everybody like, oh, Jesus, the CGI, it's so bad. And then Jon Stewart, that's it, Zeke on the ground, and he has like his weird fucking hand with hentai shooting out, and he's like, it'll all be over soon, son. He's like, and he starts retching up a parasite, but then all of a sudden, Chad, Zeke, he pulls out one of the pens, uncorks, and goes right into Jon Stewart's eye. He's like, ah! And then he like falls behind a desk, Chad, and starts going, and he starts melting and shit, and then Stan throws Zeke the paper cutter, and they go and check, and there's all this like this white foam around Jon Stewart's head and coming up from his eye, and it's like, holy shit, the Droogs killed Jon Stewart. We got to get the hell out of here. And so they burst out of the classroom, chat, and they're running, and then like all the schools just like looking at them like this and going, oh! It's like, oh, everyone's been infected, chat. We got to get out. And they end up in the parking lot. And then right as Stan's about, like everyone piles into Zeke's car at this point, his muscle car. And then Usher's like, Stan, why don't you play the football game with us? It would be quite fun. Stan's like, oh, next time, Usher. I don't think now's a great time. Zeke's like, get the fuck in here, man. Get the fuck in here. Usher's clearly a parasitic shrimp man now. And he's like, fuck it. Usher's like, whoa! And they roll off into the car, they drive away. And they're all panicking at this point. It's like, oh shit, what are we gonna do? And apparently it's like, let's not leave town. Let's just go to Zeke's house. So Zeke's like, I know the perfect place to go. But they notice that most of the town has already been taken over by the parasitic shrimp people, chat. And they roll up, there's a police blockade. And we already know the police are infected when Principal Bebe had her way of those police officers, chat. And so fucking Zeke has to get away from the blockades, and he just goes home and he's like, okay, guys, let's go into my secret laboratory. We're going to find out what these parasitic shrimp things actually also managed. They actually managed to capture one of Jon Stewart's fingers, shit they have in a jar. And so they go inside his laboratory. And they're looking around at everything. And they're like, where are your parents? Mary Beth goes, where are your parents? He goes, I don't know, Europe or something. I haven't seen them in months. They've been gone for a while, chat. And at this point, he's like, we got to just like study what the hell this fucking thing is, because we just don't know. And so he starts, he takes it out. It's all calcified and dry, puts on the thing. And he starts like cutting a piece of it off. And Elijah Wood's like asking, what are you doing? He's like, I got to see how this affects a host organism, because it's clearly a parasite, where I need to see what it's doing to the bodies. And so he takes a part of the parasite and he puts it into a cage where a rat named Oscar lives. And apparently Oscar's been using a lot of Droog experiments, chat, at this point. And Oscar, they drop some water on the parasite and it goes inside of Oscar's little mouse ear. He's like, ah! And then Zeke opens the cage and he breaks little Oscar's neck. And it's like, Jesus, that seemed a little aggressive. But then he cuts Oscar open and he notices, Chad, that all of Oscar has been dried out. That's what it is. And so these parasites, they need moist, juicy bodies, Shed. Moist, juicy bodies. But they're like, well, that's crazy. Your drug must be the thing that dried Jon Stewart out. And Miss Brittle, she was too old to sustain the parasites because she's all, gross and dry and stuff. And going, exactly. But then Mary Beth, she looks at the table and she's like, is this shit made out of caffeine pills? And Zeke's like, shh, that's my secret. So the drug, the illicit substance that Zeke has concocted, chap, that's been wiping out the aliens left and right, it's literally just grounded up caffeine pills. Because I guess, caffeine, coffee dries you out, chat. And it's like, apparently it can also completely end an alien invasion, which is ridiculous. And it's like, okay, cool. And then we get to the craziest part of the movie where it's like, okay, guys, what do we do now? And Elijah Wood's like, well, Stokely knows all about this kind of stuff in science fiction. Oh, there's an earlier scene, too, where I forgot when they're having the conversation about Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And Elijah Wood's like, well, all these books that you read, maybe they weren't so fictional. She's like, what are you talking about? It's called science fiction. But what if, like, these authors or filmmakers like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and who, anyone else, what if they actually experienced these things and they were just warning us, like George Lucas actually experienced Star Wars or Steven Spielberg actually experienced fucking E.T. and they're just warning us about this and the movies are actually real? And Stokely's like, that sounds right. And so everyone goes to Stokely for advice now. And she's like, okay, Stokely, what do you think's going on? How do we stop the aliens? She's like, well, obviously, the aliens have a queen, and therefore, if we kill the queen alien, then everyone would be cured. And everyone's like, sounds right to me. How do you know that? How do you know that's the case? You don't know that. Everyone's like, all right, sure, why not? Jordana Brewster is the only one that disagrees, not on the merit of Stokely's theory. She just disagrees because Stokely's a lesbian, or she thinks that Stokely's a lesbian. That's it. And it's so fucking stupid. To Real McCoy, thank you so much and welcome to stream. I hope you're doing very well today. But they're like, well, how do we know any of us are parasitic shrimp people? And fucking Zeke's got an idea. He's like, we're all going to take a little drug test, if you will. We're going to find out who's the thing. Get it? And so he's like, all right. But some people are like, I'm not. Stan's like, I don't do drugs. I'm not going to do drugs, man. He's like, it's the only way to be fucking sure, dude. And also Zeke has a gun at this point. Everyone's like, I don't want to do drugs either. And like Mary Beth, she's like, I'm allergic to aspirin, so if I inhale that stuff, that'll most likely kill me. And he's like, well, we gotta take it, all right? The situation calls for it. He's like, Casey, you're up first. And he's like, why me? He's like, come on, man, it's your destiny. Take it. And Casey, he takes good off. takes a good old whiff of those powdered up, those crushed caffeine pills, and he just starts fucking tripping, Chad. He's tripping, and Stan, he's like, why the fuck is that guy laughing right now? He grabs the gun from Zeke. Why is he laughing? I don't trust any of you. And fucking Zeke's like, he's fucking tweaking, man. Let him tweak, dude. Now you take this. She's like, nah, man. Nah, you take whatever the hell's in that goddamn pen. He's like, I don't try my own product, dude. You're gonna try it now, dude. And he's like, fine. And so he takes it, nice little inhale. All right, he's like, all right, now your turn. And he's like, all right, man, Jesus. And he takes it. He's like, and he starts giggling just like Casey. And he's like, okay, Stokely, you. She's like, what's actually in this? He's like, it's just fucking caffeine pills, okay, with a little bit of other asterisk household items. What is the other, chap? What is the other? I don't know. She takes it. She's kind of a little like, ugh, but she's, for the most part, fine. I think she's done some harder substances before. And then he hands the final two to Mary Beth and Jordana Brewster. And Mary Beth's like, okay, I mean, we should do it, you know, Jordana Brewster, she says, yeah, we should do it at the same time. We're like a sister pact, if you will, like a coven, if you will. Let's go ahead and take it. And so Mary Beth seemingly inhales it, and she goes, oh, she starts giggling and everything. Or Jordana Brewster looks like she goes, no! And everyone's like, whoa, Jordana, Delilah, what's going on? They get closer to her, and then she goes, rawr! And then she has this weird CGI effect because her tummy is filled with CGI shrimp parasites, and they start crawling all over her body. Everyone's like, oh my fucking God, Jordana Brewster's a shrimp parasite. And she's like, no, everybody, everyone goes through this. I'm just a woman going through the change. And it's like, no, you're not. You're lying. And Casey's like, well, maybe it's true. Maybe she's just going through, it's her time of the month. And I'm pretty sure women don't have CGI parasite shrimps inside their body when they're on their period, Casey. And fucking Zeke's like, because Casey has grabbed the gun at that point. And Zeke's like, fucking blow her away, dude. Shoot her in the head, Casey. No, she's hot and cool and stuff. And she fucking freaks out and goes, rah! And she destroys all of Zeke's. She just literally just yeets her body on top of the equipment, starts rolling around in it and shit, chat. And then she scampers away. And we see apparently someone's been outside the house the entire time, and she jumps into, it's Mr. Tate's car. She jumps in the back of his car, and she just drives away. And they're like, fuck! Oh shit, dude, fuck! I was like, that's not good. That's not good. I have a shellfish allergy. That's what it is, yes. And everyone's like, oh, Jesus. Oh, what are we going to do now? What do we do? It's like, do we have enough of the stuff to, fight against these things? And Zeke's like, I only got so much. And he's like, well, maybe Stokely's right. Maybe if we just find the queen, we can take it out and we can free the entire town. And they're like, that's a good idea. Well, who do you think the queen is? And they're like, well, it's obviously Principal Bebe because she is the principal of the school. Good thinking there, right? It's obviously the principal. And so let's go to the school. And they're like, well, where would she be? Well, thankfully, there's the football game. The football game is happening today, and she will definitely be there with the rest of the faculty. And so they all pile into Zeke's car, and they drive to the football game. We get a football montage where Usher and Robert Patrick are just, vomiting parasitic shrimp things into the other football players. And what's so funny is after they tackle someone, they go and they vomit one into the the ears and their mouths and stuff. And the players start going half the other school's football team is just taken out. And at this point, they're like, okay, there's something weird going on here, but everybody's in on it at this point. And they're all being escorted off the field, and Usher's being praised because look, Usher's in a scene. He's acting in the movie. But they all the characters, they pull up there, they park the car, and they're like, all right, guys, maybe we should go into the gymnasium and come up with a plan to get Principal Bebe. And they're like, yeah, good idea. And so they all go into the gymnasium, but Principal Bebe, she's already watching them, chat. And so they get into the gymnasium, they all start talking at this point, figuring okay, what's the plan? What can we possibly do? And then all of a sudden she walks in, she goes, I'm sorry, students, boys and girls, but the gymnasium is off limits after school hours. Please come with me to be processed. And they're like, no way, Principal Bebe, absolutely not. And then Stan and Zeke, what they do is they take the volleyball net and they just wrap it around her Scooby-Doo style until she falls over. And she's like, you are all in really big trouble. And you're like, stop the act, Principal Bebe. We know you're one of the parasites. But now people in the group are like, well, I don't know, guys. Maybe she's not. Maybe she really isn't a parasitic shrimp person. And then, Principal Bebe goes, Rah! She rips open the volleyball net that encased her, chat. And everyone's like, oh, fucking shit. And then, boom. They shoot her in the head, chat. Pow! Right up there, and she falls down, seemingly dead. Everyone's like, holy shit. Is she dead? And so they go over there, Chad. They kick her, and then Casey's like, oh no, guys. I think we made a horrible mistake. A horrible mistake. And then she just gets up, and we see all the parasites coming out of her bullet head wound and start pouring out. She opens her mouth and going, Rah! And they're like, oh. I'm like, what do we do? And then Mary Beth, she has like they have this giant vial of the grounded up caffeine pills, and she just throws like half of the vial like into the face of Principal Bebe, and Principal Bebe's like, Rah! And then it's horrible death. She ain't come back yet. And she starts melting, and then Mary Beth pours the rest on top of her, and Zeke's like, whoa, don't fucking waste all of it. What are you doing? She's like, sorry, I just wanted to be thorough. And he's like, all right, fair enough. And Principal Bebe is no more, but they're like, was that the queen? Did we get her? How do we know? And then they go to the football field where they see more people leaving, and seemingly like nothing has changed. And then it's like, I don't know, guys. This is just so messed up. I have no idea what we could possibly do at this point. And Stan's like, I will go outside alone and check on things. And everyone's like, Stan, that's a brilliant idea. You go outside alone and check on things. Why? Why? God damn it. And so right before he's about to go outside, Stan and Stokely, they have a moment chat where, he's like, hey, just wanted to say it was just, despite this being really crazy situation fighting parasitic shrimp people, it's been really cool to get to meet you. And Stokely's just shut up and fucking kiss me. And they have a nice little kiss. She's like, I wanted to make sure I do that before I die. He's like, we ain't dying tonight, Stokely. I'm coming back to you. And then, Zeke's like, hey, man, take some fucking caffeine, drugs. And he's like, yeah, I'll take this, man. I'll fight against all of the parasitic shrimp people with this pen. And this scene confused me to this day, where it's now pouring rain. He runs out and he sees the entire football team and Robert Patrick with some awful CGI in their faces going, that's some good water. They're loving it. And Stan just immediately runs up and is face to face, as close as I am to the camera, just looking at Robert Patrick like this. And Robert Patrick's like, this is just too easy. And you assume what happens. Like, I don't get it. Eventually, we come back to the group. Stokely is still there with Mary Beth. Mary Beth's now looking at everyone like this. He's like, I don't know. I don't trust any of you. I mean, I don't think I'm liking this world very much. And we go, that's a really odd thing to say, Mary Beth, but we're not going to suspect you yet. It's like, wow, Stan's taking a long time. When is he going to get back? And then boom, he comes up in the door. He's like, guys, it's the fucking coach. He's Robert Patrick. He's the T-1000. He's the queen. Let me in. He's like, where's your fucking pen filled with caffeine powder, dude? He's like, oh, I don't know. I think I dropped it when I was running away from Robert Patrick. Guys, let me in. Or go, fuck no, dude. Fuck no. You got to take the test, dude. He's like, okay, I'll take the test. Just let me inside so I can be close to your very warm, fleshy bodies. And again, that's an oddly specific thing to say. And they're like, no, you got to inhale, man. You got to be like, you got to inhale this drug. And so they pass it through underneath the door. And he's like, okay, Jesus, okay, I'll inhale it. Stokely, I mean, you believe me. I'm going to inhale it. And he's like, all right, here it goes. Fuck it. And he just pours it out, and he's like, and Stokely's like, no. And they're like, shit, they got Stan. Of course they got Stan. He got bamboozled easily. And he's just talking to Stokely. He's like, Stokely, listen, it feels like really cool to be a shrimp person. You know, they're all in my tummy right now, and I feel really cool, and I can put them in your tummy, and you'll be beautiful. You'll be filled with shrimp. You'll be filled with shrimp, Stokely. Just open the goddamn door. She's like, I don't want to be filled with shrimp. And then she runs away. They run away, and they go back in the main gymnasium, and then we get this wide shot of Stan running away like this. Oh, he's so upset and so goofy. And then this point, Zeke and Casey, they're like, okay, like we don't have any more of the caffeine killer drug. We need to go back to my car to get more of it. And it's like, why didn't you just have that with you? It doesn't matter. And so we're going to go out there and get it. The women folk, they should stay here, okay? And if we're not back by dawn, call the fucking president. And so Zeke and Casey, they go out there and they hide under a bus. But we see Robert Patrick with the football team just like searching the school grounds for them. And they're hiding on the bus and they see the car. But at this point, you know, Casey's like, you know, we're going to get spotted if we go over there. And fucking Zeke's like, you're right. That's why I need you to be the decoy, Casey. And then he fucking pushes Casey. He's like, oh my God. And he starts running from the football team and Robert Patrick, who's just doing the T-1000, chasing after him at this point. Eventually, he gets into one of the buses, and he's surrounded by the football team. He's like, what am I going to do? And then he's confronted by Jordana Brewster, chat, who is looking very sexy. And she's like, Casey, oh, it's so good to see you. He's like, Jordana Brewster, you look really attractive, but stay away from me. Casey, just let me fill you with shrimp. Let me put shrimp inside of you, Casey. They're swimming in me. And he's like, I don't really want that. She's like, I haven't felt this good since the day before my dad died. And it's like, that's a very oddly specific thing to say, Casey, but I don't want to be filled with your shrimp. I gotta leave. And so he opens, because, you know, all the buses have like a moonroof, and he opens the roof, he crawls on top, and he runs away from Jordana Brewster and the football team who are filled with shrimp. We then cut to Zeke, who then goes over to his car. He's looking into his trunk, and he's trying to find the caffeine drug. But then, he senses a presence, chat. And it's Famke Johnson. He's like, hello, Miss Burke. She's like, how you doing, sailor? Want me to fill you with shrimp babies? And he's like, not really. She's like, I'm just in the mood right now, Zeke, for something cherry flavored, if you know what I mean. And he's like, oh, I'm sure you are. I mean, I can help you to many other wares I keep on my purse. She's like, oh, I'm in the mood for Zeke flavor. He goes, I bet you are. But he spots some of the drug in his front seat, like a couple of pens worth. He's like, oh shit. He's like, well, let me just go ahead and just immediately just goes into his car and like shuts the door. She's like, oh man. And he turns it on, and she just rams her face right into the glass, chat, and ends up into the passenger seat. She goes, where you going, Zekey boy? He's like, oh! And he starts driving, chat, but she doesn't have the seatbelt on, and so he's like spinning the car around, so she ends up in the back, and she's trying, then she eventually grabs him, and she's like, let me fill you with my shrimp. And she's like, oh! And he like has a shrimp about to come out. But then he hits the fucking brakes, chat, or actually right into a bus, and she just goes forward right through the fucking windshield, chat, as the bus he hits explodes, and she's caught in the aftermath and everything. He falls out of the car. He has the gun, he has the drugs, and then we see one of the absolute worst shots in the entire movie where we see that Famke Johnson has been decapitated, but I guess the parasites can put you back together, and so she has this weird CGI octopus head, and it's like, and we see her body like trying to find her octopus head, and Zeke's like, whoa, like he says whoa like 3 times and what's so funny is, if you look at Josh Hartnett, he's actually not looking at where the head is because he was given such bad direction, most likely from Robert Rodriguez, and so he's just looking at anything. So it's like, whatever. But he runs away. Eventually, we then cut back to Mary Beth. We cut back to good old Mary Beth, chat, and Stokely. And she's like, Stokely, despite everything, it's been kind of fun. She goes, what? She goes, yeah, I'm just not used to new places like this. And, on my world, I mean, you know, we have our ways, we have our traditions. Like, you mean in Georgia? She goes, no, silly. No, I'm the big third act reveal. I'm the hentai monster shrimp queen. Woo! And she turns into this giant fucking Cajun shrimp, chat, and she just hit. It's like, what the fuck just happened? And she just hits Stokely with her giant hentai tentacle. And she's like, oh my God. She goes like, what the fuck? She goes, you gotta be fucking kidding, which is from The Thing. Elijah Wood's like, what's going on? And he's like, Mary Beth is the giant shrimp Cajun queen. And he's like, we got to get the hell out of here then. And so they start running, chat, but Mary Beth uses the power of awful CGI to chase after him. And she's like, flop on the ground. And they go into the pool. And the thing is, Mary Beth's like, you brought me to the pool. This is very kind. And she just jumps in the pool, is able to swim faster, chat, in her weird monster form. And right before Stokely and Elijah Wood are able to get into the locker room, Mary Beth shoots out her hentai tentacles and wrap up Stokely, and they makes her fall, and she fucking hits her mouth on the ceramic, most likely knocking off all of her goddamn teeth, chat. And she's like, and like, you know, pulls her in there. But the thing is, though, you know, Elijah Wood's like, I'm not giving up on Stokely at this point. And he takes the pool net and he manages to scoop up Stokely and the rest of her teeth, and she puts them all back in there. But she got a bad looking mouth now, chat. Her mouth is not pretty no more. But they continue running as they go into the locker room. And then Mary Beth decides, like, well, I'm going to change back into my human form and try to woo and serenade these folks. And Mary Beth's just naked for the rest of the movie. She enters into the locker room at one point. Zeke eventually gets there and confronts Stokely. He's like, whoa, what the fuck is going on? And then Mary Beth's like, Zeke, she's one of them. She's one of them parasite shrimp people. He's like, Mary Beth, why are you naked? She goes, oh, I'm naked? Oh, I am naked. I didn't realize that. Oh, silly me. She's like, oh, shit. She's like, listen, Zeke, listen. Let me tell you, filling your tummy with all them parasitic shrimp, it's going to be, it's going to be good. All right, just let me fill you up. And then Stokely grabs Zeke. She's like, I got him. Fill him with your shrimp, baby. She's like, yes. But then Zeke, he pushes Stokely into, I don't know what this is. It's like a cage inside the locker room. I don't know what it is, but it's a giant cage inside the locker room, and he locks it somehow, and he runs away. And Mary Beth's like, fine, I guess we're just going to do this the hard way, playing hard to get. Woo-wee. And eventually Casey comes. Elijah Wood's like, hey, man, what's going on? He's like, fucking everyone's been fucking turned into monsters. Stokely's gotten. And he's like, oh, no. He's like, take these drugs. He's like, why? I took them before. He's like, listen, everyone else is a monster. How do I know if you're not a monster? He's like, all right. And he takes it, and then Zeke takes it too. And it's like, all right, good. We're not crazy. And so, you know, they're just moving around at this point. And Casey's like, well, Zeke, what are we gonna do? Zeke's just gone. And all of a sudden we hear this monster go roar, and we see Zeke flying over the lockers, and he hits some lockers, and he gets knocked the fuck out. And, you know, Casey's like, oh shit. And he runs over to Zeke, but he's knocked out. He's unconscious. Takes the rest of the drugs. And then Mary Beth turns back in her human form, but we see I actually like the shadow effect where she's in her human form, but we see her shadow is very much her monster form. And she's like, Casey, why don't you just let me fill you up with my shrimp babies? It's so much better. See, I came from a world filled with beautiful oceans, but all damn oceans got dried up. And I came here, and I couldn't believe it. All these people hurt, wars and such. We can make it better. I can make the ugly duckling feel loved and beautiful at home. I can make the jock as intelligent as the nerd. I can make the weakling, the geek like yourself, feel like the biggest star in the school. Why don't you let me fill you with my shrimp babies, Casey? Why won't you let me do that? Don't you want to live in a world where you're not afraid and you don't and you know and you want to have shrimp? And he's like, I do not want shrimp, and I'd rather be afraid. And she's like, suit yourself. And then she turns into the monster again, and then she chases after Casey, and then they get to the other part of the gymnasium. They go back to the gymnasium, and he then activates the bleachers, and he runs in the back of the bleachers as Mary Beth, the queen alien, chases after him. But the bleachers are slowly closing, Chad, and eventually gets to the other end. He yeets himself over, but then the bleachers trap Mary Beth inside there, and he's like, "Yeah, bitch, what are you gonna do? Try this on for size. It'll make you tweak real good." And he fucking stabs her in the eye with like 3 of the pens filled with the, again, crushed up caffeine tablets, and she just goes and she just vomits like a whole bunch of shrimp babies that go inside of his face. He's like, "Ugh!" And he starts freaking out. But then, chap, Mary Beth slowly dies from the caffeine, and she just melts, and the shrimp babies come out of Elijah Wood's face, and he just passes out. And it's like, yeah, they have quite a kick. And then weeks later, days later, Chet, everything has gone back to normal with, I'm sorry. What he does is, before this, after he recovers, he wakes up and he goes and he checks on Stokely, and he's like, "Are you okay, Stokely?" She's like, "All the shrimp I just shat out a whole bunch of shrimp, Casey." He goes, "Oh, yes," and they hug. And then Zeke comes over. He's like, "Is it over?" "It's over, Zeke, it's over." And then it's the next day, and then it's the next day, and however many, it's weeks later, and we have all these news reporters on the scene. It's like, "It's been several weeks since the horrific events at a high school that has resulted in several deaths of students and faculty members. And, the United States government has given few details, but it is speculated among the population of this small town community in Ohio that it was an attempted alien invasion by parasitic shrimp people that went inside our tummies." And then we cut, and everyone's different now. Zeke has joined the football team, and Robert Patrick is like, "Get your goddamn ass out there, Zeke, okay? Stop smoking that bud and get your ass out." He's like, "All right, T-1000, he's doing that." And then Femke Johnson is alive, and I don't know how, and she's waving at Zeke like, "Ooh, hi." And it's like, are they sleeping together? It's like, that's inappropriate. I don't like that at all. It's very inappropriate. She should not be sleeping with the student, chat, because that's what's heavily implied. We see Stan is concentrating on his academics. Stokely is no longer goth. She's dressed in a purple dress now, and she makes out with Stan. We see Elijah Wood has discovered hair gel, and his hair is slightly gelled and spiky, chat. And Jordana Brewster is now his girlfriend. She goes, "I love hobbits." And she's like making out with Elijah Wood and stuff. And she goes like, and she throws on all these magazines. Then he's on the front cover of Time and, US Weekly and all this shit. He's like, hero, fact or fiction, the greatest of the Gen Xers and all that shit. Then she throws on her newspaper and says, Casey, Elijah Wood, saves fucking high school from alien goddamn invasion. And then we have all these reporters coming over to Casey, and he's like, "What are the local or network?" She goes, "Both." He goes, "Let's go talk to them, girlfriend." And they go over and talk, and when we see these bullies, Usher and these bullies, reaming this other kid's balls into a flagpole, chat. And that, my friends, is my scene by scene by scene breakdown for The Faculty. As I said before, I think there's a lot to appreciate about this film. There's some solid performances. It's just the leaps in logic, how it liberally steals from other better horror films and sci-fi pictures. That kind of sticks in my craw, chat. So if I have to give this a rating, I would most likely give this a high rental. High rental on the double toasted DT scale, chat. But I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed the review. Bravo. Thank you. Now Brownie says, "Shut up." No. No, man. I'm getting bullied. Luke the Boss. So knowing that she is actually an alien, story-wise, it would have just made sense for them to just say this was in Texas since it's filmed there. Because instead of her just having an accent, they are in Texas and she wanted to fit in. Seems like Mary Beth felt that the need to fake an accent and concoct a story about being from Atlanta for reasons. Lol. True. It's ridiculous. It's silly. Because I give it a high matinee. I really like most of the characters. They raise it up a lot. Fair enough. Thank you, Hamilton Burger. Thank you, guys. Clea Duvall, who played Stokely, is a lesbian in real life. Oh, look at that. Apparently, she's not a lesbian in the movie, despite being told by Jordana Brewster. Jordana Brewster is still a homophobe at the end, by the way. Still shitty. Trailblazers is great. Thank you, guys. No, I hope you enjoyed the review. And now, my friends, we got to figure out what we're doing next. Are we doing Book of Boba Fett? Are we doing episode 1, the Book of Boba Fett? Are we playing some Far Cry 6? You let me know.